Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to session 6. And welcome to the Ohio Statewide Family Engagement Leadership Summit. We're glad that you could join us for this Power Up session, which I know will allow you to chart new territories in family engagement. My name is Meredith Wellman, and I will be this session's moderator. This session is number 6, and it's titled Swanton Elementary School, Partnering with Families to Develop Parent-Friendly Reports. If you have any questions about the summit, concerns, or technical issues, you can message me privately in the chat. And just to let you know, I'm particularly looking forward to this session because Swanton Elementary is one of the schools in our second cohort that's received training and coaching in the Partnerships for Literacy model, which I co-created with Dr. Barbara Boone. And we've been working closely with the Ohio Department of Education to provide this training and coaching to several Ohio schools. And this presentation is going to give you a small glimpse into the impact of that work. I ask that you turn off your camera and microphone during the presentation, but if you have any questions for the presenters, you can use the chat feature and we'll either answer them in real time or during the discussion at the end of the session. There will be 2 defined times for question and answer. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, but be sure to use the hashtag Chart New Territories and tag us at Ohio Engage on Twitter to share your thoughts. With us here today are Christy Moulter, Mindy Meyer, Christy Shinovar, and Vicki Young from Swanton Local Schools. Christy Moulter is the principal at Swanton Elementary School. She's beginning her 25th year in education and her 5th year as a principal. Before she got into education, Christy was in the business world for 7 years, and she and her husband have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Mindy Meyer is a parent of children in 6th, 4th, and 1st grade. She graduated with her master's in art education and taught art before having children. She was previously an elementary and high school teacher, and she currently works in property management and bookkeeping. She enjoys continuing to work with the schools as education is important to her and essential to the development of our children and society. Christy Shinovar is the instructional literacy leader and coach at Swanton Elementary. She's beginning her 16th year in education. We've got some old pros here, guys. She's a certified local letters facilitator and trainer. She's teaching Title I. She taught Title I for the first 11 years of her career, and it led her to a passion for literacy and working with families. Christy and her husband have 2 daughters. Vicki Young is beginning her 10th year of teaching Title I reading at Swanton Elementary. She's been married for almost 20 years and has 3 boys. Got a lot of old pros in terms of education and family life here. I have 2 children, so I'm just getting started with my parenting journey. They're pretty little still. Okay, so what do all these presenters have in common? What they have in common is that they are all members of a Swanton Elementary Partnerships for Literacy team. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Christy Moulter, the principal, take the mic now and talk to you about their work. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you, Meredith, and hello and welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Power Up session. We are from Swanton Elementary School in Swanton, Ohio, which is a small town just west of Toledo, and we are here to share with you how we partnered with families to develop effective parent-friendly literacy reports. Our Partnerships for Literacy team consisted of, and continues to consist of, 9 members. 4 of those members are staff members and 5 are community or parent members. Present today, as Meredith had mentioned, are myself, Christy Moulter, the principal, Christy Shinovar, our literacy coach, Vicki Young, who is one of our Title I teachers, and Mindy Meyer, who is one of our parent representatives on our team. Not present today, we also had a 3rd grade teacher on our team, Sarah Koroleski, and additional parents, Brooke Chinney, Nathan Jacobs, Sandra Walbott, and Lisa Hendricks. And we appreciate all of their input. So I'm going to turn it over to Christy Shinovar.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So our state support team member, Jackie Jacoby, came to meet with our building leadership team to give us more insight into the family and community engagement goals. Our BLT began the process of creating our Partnerships for Literacy team by sending out a survey to our parents and community members in order to ensure that all of our subgroups were represented and had voice. Once we had those survey results, we reached out to families who were interested. A few of the members of our team are also a member of the building leadership team, which really helps with the sharing of information and the action steps and bringing that work of the BLT back to our teacher-based teams. So I'd like to recognize all of the members of the team for the time, ideas, sharing honestly, hard work, and dedication. Thank you. Our team members really listened to each other and asked good questions. It was important to Swanton Elementary School to hear from our parents to really understand the needs of our families. Considering their perspectives and avoiding assumptions was an integral part to the success of our team. Our team met quarterly and stayed focused on the priority areas and the action steps.
We utilized the Partnerships for Literacy framework to guide the work of the team. At our first meeting, we completed the inventory where we rated our school on communication, supporting early language and literacy at home, and strategic community partnerships. At our second meeting, we reviewed the results of the inventory and had further discussion regarding all of our current parent communications concerning student progress. From listening and hearing various perspectives, we found that parents and teachers felt that our benchmark reports were inconsistent across the grade levels and not easy to understand. This led to the creation of our action plan. The main goal of our action plan was to streamline the reports as much as possible across the grade bands and make them easier for parents to understand.
So once our Partnerships for Literacy action plan was created, the P4L team met again the following quarter to look closely at our benchmark reports and share ideas for how the reports could become more parent-friendly. The ideas from the P4L team were then shared with our DLT and our BLT. The BLT then took the work back to the teacher-based teams to be revised and edited within their grade level. These final products were again shared back with the P4L team for approval. We definitely wanted to get that parent input and approval. This communication cycle was part of the success of this process, as we know communication is key, and it helped everyone to feel informed and part of the important work that we were doing as a building to improve communication with parents.
Okay, so now we're going to take a minute to dig into our reports. Before we start that, we initially looked at all of our reports, including grade cards, reading improvement and monitoring plans, response to intervention documents, IEP progress reports, and STAR reading reports. But what we came to settle on was streamlining the reports that we were sending home for Acadience reading, formerly known as Dibbles Next. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those before and after samples of the reports that we were sending. We'll look at kindergarten first. Okay. So this parent letter was sent home along with a color printout of the scores from the data site. Nothing was filled in on here. It was just kind of sent home as an information piece for parents. And once we scroll down a little bit further, we'll see that there was a color printout then with the actual scores. Notice on here that, it just says FSF, LNF, PSF. Parents who don't have a background in education communicated that doesn't really mean anything to them. What is that supposed to be telling me? And so, we really listened to that and even with the information sheet with it, it just was sort of some feedback that we got that it would really be nice to have everything all on one page and kind of spelled out right in the report. Let's take a look at what we sent home for first grade. Again, we have a really nice put together information sheet that was sent home with first grade, kind of lays everything out and explains what all of the data means. And if we scroll down again, we'll see that there is, again, a color printout of the actual scores for parents to kind of look at and see where they're at. And when we get to the second grade report, let's open that up here. This is, so this is just sent home, or this was being sent home just by itself in second grade. So then they were sort of missing that explanation of what it meant. But then when we get to the third grade report, our teachers had already created a format that was a little bit more user-friendly, parent-friendly, and did actually have all of the information on one page. If we scroll down a little bit more, we'll see that there's a color coding on the bottom that would show what the scores mean. So if the student had an advanced score in a particular subtest, the teacher would use the blue ink in order to show that it was an advanced score. They would use green to show that it was on track, yellow when they recorded the score in there to show that it was below the goal, or red if it was not on track. So, and if we look at the fourth grade report, the fourth grade teachers had put together a report very similar to what the third grade teachers had, with that color coding again, everything on one page, acronyms kind of spelled out. So one of the things so as you can see, there was really a lot of inconsistency though across the grade bands. And again, not all of the reports were easy for parents to understand. So the feedback that we got from parents was to kind of streamline these reports and make them more parent-friendly. They liked that the third and fourth grade reports spelled out the acronyms. They liked that they were on one page. They liked that they used a similar font. And also, when there's not consistency from year to year, it's just not as easy to understand. Parents did want the type of reports that would be sort of familiar from kindergarten through fourth grade, since we have, those are the grade levels that we have in the building. So as we previously mentioned, these suggestions from the parents and the Partnerships for Literacy team were taken back to the building leadership team, and those building leadership team members led their TBTs through the revision process. So let's take a look at what our final reports became. Here is the updated kindergarten report. Okay. And if we scroll down a little bit, notice we've got the goals for the beginning, middle, and end of year. First sound fluency is spelled out instead of being an acronym. Same with letter naming fluency, phoneme segmentation fluency. So it's really a lot more parent friendly. Again, they liked that color coding at the bottom, so we kept that in line with what third grade had done, and sort of used that third and fourth grade report as a model for the other grade levels. We tried to keep the fonts the same kind of look and feel, even though there are different measures tested at different times of year and different grade levels. We sort of tried to format it so that it had a similar look and feel. Let's go ahead and look at the first grade report. Again, it sort of starts off the same. There's an explanation of what DIBELS is. We have our goals, acronyms spelled out. And again, that color coding that tells you what those colors mean. And the second grade report, here we actually have one that's completed for a student, although we did white out the name of the student so that that student's identity would be protected. What I really like about this one is that you can kind of see the color coding for a form that's already completed. But the same thing, we've spelled out acronyms, kind of try to put a little explanation in of what each one means. And then there's that color coding again at the bottom that shows what each of those colors means. Are they on track? Are they below the goal? Okay. And so third grade, even though we use this as our model, we did still make a few updates just for that streamlining of the reports for the consistency across the grade bands. And so just a few minor tweaks to make sure everything that needed to be on there was on there. We also added the days since that was a measure that was administered in third grade. And if we go to the fourth grade report, we'll see this was also updated, tweaked a little bit to make sure that it was in line with the other reports. So notice that everything's on one page for all of our reports. They're easier to understand for parents, and they have a similar format with all of the acronyms defined. Before we move on to the next section, and we will have time for questions at the end too, but we wanted to know if there are any questions at this time from anyone.
If you have any questions, you're welcome to write them in the chat, or you could even unmute right now and let us know what your question is, or maybe you saw something in one of these that you feel like you could easily adopt at your school or in your local community. Any and all comments and feedback for a couple minutes here. Jackie, I see that you're on here. As the coach for Swanton's team, do you want to share any thoughts at this point in the presentation about the work that they've been doing and sort of where things are headed next?
Yeah, thanks, Meredith. You know, Swanton did some amazing work, and I think going through this process and using this framework, one of the major takeaways was really truly making sure that they were listening and not making decisions for the team, right? So they would, you know, bring something to the TBTs, their teacher-based teams, and then, you know, we'd want to start moving forward and talking about what that's going to look like and making sure that that aligned and was mentioned in their next staff meeting. But I think Christy Shenever and also Christy Mulcher, the school leader, did a really good job of intentionally stopping themselves and being like, nope, this needs to be a decision that we need to take back to the team. Nope, we need to pause. We need to evaluate if this is what we need to do. So I think it was a very good learning process, right? The disposition around family engagement and really all working towards, you know, a school improvement effort of improving literacy was really amazing, and something that before, maybe historically, you know, was something that they would do for families or provide to families. But overall, you know, the process came with an outcome, right? We now have these new reports, but alongside that outcome came a new disposition, came a new understanding of really truly how we can leverage our relationships with families to make our work easier for everyone, right? And ultimately improve each student's success.
Thanks, Jackie. There are a couple questions in the chat. From Patty Jomo, she said, it seems that the suggested effort for a parent is sort of more or less the same for each report. Have you thought about suggested efforts being more specifically directed to where the child needs support?
I can jump in and help with this answer. These reports were our initial getting all of the data formatted and in a parent-friendly way. Actually, then at the end of the year, we revisited our communication inventory. And one of the things that we have found that we still want further action steps for are to provide strategies that families and parents can do for their students at home, and just continue that communication cycle and expand upon what we already have created.
And then one more question from Bailey. Did you find families were more likely to follow up and ask for specific literacy strategies after receiving reports in this way?
Well, we actually finished our year with our old reports. This was finalized before our end of year report. So we were just going to be starting to use the reports in this way this year.
All right, thanks, Christy, and thanks for the people asking questions as well. I think you've got a couple more slides, is that right? And there's about 10 minutes left.
Yes, that is correct. Our next slide is our big takeaways. And just to give you a little bit of background, when we first formed our Partnerships for Literacy team, we actually were going to have our first P4L meeting the day we ended up having to close down in March of 2019 due to the pandemic. At that point, we had to weigh our options. As everyone knows, there was a lot going on, but we had to decide what was most important. We decided that hearing from our parents was a priority, so we ended up having a summer meeting. Our initial meeting was in the summer over Zoom to jumpstart the process and complete the inventory. And then, as mentioned earlier, once our inventory was created, we had our quarterly meetings and began to dig into reports and that, communication cycle that went back and forth between the DLT, the BLT, and the TBTs, and then back to the Partnerships for Literacy team. So as a team, we were concerned, though, about giving teachers added work in revising the reading reports during the pandemic school year. We knew they were working very hard and dealing with a difficult year. Our teachers showed their investment, though, and commitment to our school and its outcomes and jumped right in to help unify the reports. They valued that input from our families and agreed that it was definitely something that we could do to help out the literacy communication. So as the principal, I definitely feel that this work has given us important insight into the parent perspective regarding how to best communicate student progress in a timely, meaningful, and understandable way. And as Jackie had pointed out, the biggest thing is to not make those assumptions. Like, we could assume this is what parents need, but we had to hear from them. We needed to sit back, show them what we had, and let them give us their perspective on the situation. So I'm going to turn it over to Mindy also, so she can talk a little bit about her parent perspective.
Thank you, Christy. The Partnerships for Literacy has allowed me to be in more contact with the school and what is going on with the teaching and planning aspects. I have learned more about the needs of the elementary building, the teachers, and the parents on an individual basis. The insight I have gained with the purpose of the tests and breaking down the test scores has been beneficial to me as a parent and being able to offer assistance in interpreting the test scores in an easier way.
We can't hear you, Christy. Sorry. I think you may be Doesn't look like you're muted. Maybe your headset is acting weird. No, still can't hear you. Maybe wiggle.
Can you
There.
hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay. I just wanted to talk a little bit before we end about our next steps for our Partnerships for Literacy team. So through our team discussions last year and revisiting the inventory, we've already decided that we will work on supporting early literacy and language at home during the 2021-22 school year. We've been brainstorming ideas about putting together videos, information, and activities for parents to do at home with their children. We believe that continuing the work of the Partnerships for Literacy team and moving that work forward is vital to our school's literacy program. We're currently working with a state support team on a process for onboarding new team members for when someone leaves the team. We think that this is essential because we know that the work that we do with our P4L team is critical and we want to sustain it. We will continue collaborating our ideas with the DLT, BLT, and TBTs. So this will include everyone and give them the opportunity to offer their insight and suggestions for our district's literacy improvement plans and the implementation of those plans. We feel really good about the progress of our team's efforts and how it is helping communication with parents about their children's education and progress. We look forward to carrying on with this positive momentum. Thank you so much for joining us. And at this time, we would like to take some time to answer any further questions that you may have.
This question is for the whole team, maybe the principal, Christy, in particular, but how did you invite families to be on the team? What did that process look like, and what was the response from families when you approached them?
We started with our BLT creating a survey, and Jackie Jacoby helped us with this, but we created a survey just to get an initial, interest in the English language arts and literacy. We asked, some information about different subgroup categories. And then from there, based on, who completed the survey, who gave us information, we reached out to individual families first to see who might be interested in joining our team. We also did a lot of, we had a lot of discussion about, how many we should have. We wanted, different groups to be represented, but we didn't want to, if you have too many, that can be an issue too, just coordinating it all with everyone. And if you have too few, it makes it difficult to get a broad range of insight into our families and what they're thinking and that. So that is it in a nutshell. I hope that answered your question.
It did, thank you. I see that there is sort of a link on the slide, so I'm going to put a link to a PDF of that impact report in the chat right now. And that is really a page for each school that is currently implementing Partnerships for Literacy. They each going to get a page to share the impact of their work from the last school year. All right, Teresa wants to know what other reports are on your list to look at and revise if necessary.
I can answer that. One of the other things that we wanted to look at and revise was our reading improvement and monitoring plan. Try to make that a little bit more parent friendly also. Our big goal for this year, though, again, is to look at that language and literacy piece for connections at home for that and to help parents with things to do at home.
All right, we can definitely stick around for a couple more questions at the end if people have time, but I, at this point, want to thank you all so much for our 4 wonderful presenters. Let's give them some Zoom love in the chat. If this is your last session of the day, this is the time to complete your post-summit survey, and I will put that in the chat in just a second. If you're joining a later session, you can wait until later today to do the survey. There's just one survey for the full event. And I'm our team's internal evaluation leader, so I can tell you with absolute certainty that we value your feedback about how we did today, how we're doing, and I will read and analyze all of the things that you say and help our team come back bigger and better next year. And so I'll put that in the chat. Okay, now you're getting lots of Zoom love. That's amazing. And you deserve it. You guys are doing great work. You're connecting to your school improvement process. You're using data. You're listening to families, checking a lot of good boxes in family engagement. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules as parents, as school leaders, as teachers to come and talk to us today. All right. Just as a reminder, if you heard from someone today that you want to reach out to, feel free to make a connection in the chat before you go, exchange contact information like Dr. Gorski was talking about at the beginning of the day today. This is a space where we, even though it's kind of remote, we want people to feel like it is personal and theirs. So feel free to use that chat to make connections, to ask more questions of the presenters, and generally to get the most out of this event. I'm going to stick around for a couple more minutes in case there's any more questions for me or the presenters, but at this point, I just want to thank you all so much for coming. The next session is the lunch panel. It starts at 12:15, so grab your lunch. We're going to have a discussion with family leaders about partnerships, and there's more details at the Summit webpage if you're interested. Any parting thoughts from our presenters or participants?
I would just like to thank everyone for joining us and giving us the time to share what we're doing at our school.